Technology, business, multimedia, wellness and health, events, reviews, and more. This is Mary Collins from LifeHakx Media, and I have the absolute pleasure to have Eva Weisenbeck, our health and wellness expert, as well as Albert Benavides. Hi, Albert. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Perfect. Eva, all good on your end in the UK?
All good here. It's very rainy in the UK, but it's good.
We have a very international group of experts today because we have Eva from Sweden, who's in the UK, and we have Albert from sunny California, although he does look, for you listeners who can't see him, like he's freezing cold today. It's really early there, so that's okay. With that, Albert, I'm going to give everyone a little bit of information about you. So Albert is a certified medical coder, and he has his own company that does medical billing services. And with that, he has also developed a curiosity and a wonderful podcast going towards the research of what's happening right now with SARS, COVID, and the adverse effects of that we're starting to see pop up here and there with this pandemic. So with that, Albert, give us a little bit more information about you and how you got into doing the analysis hacks for the ongoing situation that we have now.
Yeah, thank you. And glad to be here on your podcast, on your show. So the VAERS system, which is an acronym for Vaccine Adverse Effects Reporting System, is what we have here in the United States. It's the best we got, but it's not complete. There's always a lot of missing information. I think everybody has heard that maybe there's a Harvard Pilgrim study out there that says that they think that only 1% of all adverse effects get reported to the system. Mm-hmm. So
yes, Eva was saying that in a previous segment.
Yeah, but our health system here, regardless of all of that, they use it as try to compile all that data and use it as a warning system, where I guess they call it, where we could see flags. That's what they say. Mm-hmm. And maybe a pattern emerging or something like that. So, that's what it is. But it's been in existence since 1990. So it's been around, and it's and up until COVID, it was basically mainly for children's vaccines and whatever adult vaccines, right? So, I mean, I did not know anything about this VAERS system until the vaccine started to roll out, because then it became apparent, like, oh, where do we go to figure out how this vaccine is doing?
Right. And speaking of which, with your background, that's when you started to really notice a pattern, because you actually have the expertise to see what this medical data transcribes into, correct?
Right. And that's where when I took a look at the VAERS system, I just kept saying, ooh, this looks familiar. And then, it's downloadable in a comma separated value Excel spreadsheet format style data. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm home. It's here. It's the same stuff I'm used to seeing. Mm-hmm. So right away, I gravitated to it, and I jumped on it, and then coupled with my Microsoft Excel skills, my Excel spreadsheet skills that I was self-taught, and I had to learn that out of necessity, really, for my for medical billing. So I think that every week I've been downloading and just have a routine and get it onto my dashboards. I just simply call my Excel spreadsheets my dashboards. And so I've been making videos of the dashboard.
Right. And this is the thing too, because what have you been noticing that's just not adding up when it comes to the numbers?
Okay, well,
Let's get right into the
let's
conspiracy
jump
versus critical
right in.
thinking.
Here it is. No, this is my main, and this is like my main Twitter hashtag. Bears throttles. That's it. But they're throttling data,
Hmm.
and just to make this point, we are currently up to 228,000 adverse effects.
Wow.
And of those, we
Wow.
always go right to the 4,000 deaths that we're at. We're at like 4,200 deaths
That
or
have been
so
reported. That have been
that have
reported.
that have been reported to the public. Let me make that distinction.
Oh,
Right. That's
And
important.
that's where I'm making the distinction, because I've realized, that's where I realized they're throttling, because
Hmm.
in that 40 that 228,000 adverse effects, aka 4,000 deaths, um, uh, that 49% of those statistics are from vaccinations January 31st or older.
Hmm.
That is so
Wow.
January or older. Half of our data is from jabs, January. And so when I say January or older, I'm only talking about 6 weeks in
Hmm.
total, because day one for us was December 14th. That was when the first jab was given.
Hmm.
So half of our data is from those jabs way back then, and the other 50% is spread out against February, March, April, May,
Hmm.
and May. So it's like, how far behind are we?
Right. And then
Are
also
we
this is
really?
yeah, and that's the other thing that really concerns me because I actually have known now four different people who have had adverse reactions to the jab, right?
Wow, personally, wow,
Yeah,
yeah.
personally. And
Hmm.
and the thing is that their doctors are not connecting it. So it's like, wait,
yeah.
what? So one
Yeah.
was a woman in her 60s, who after 3 weeks suddenly had like just felt really ill and it went to the emergency in the UK and it turned out that she had sepsis in her uterus and in her in and her appendix. So like okay,
Hmm.
appendix is something that happens, right? And normally when a woman has like endometriosis, this is a sign that something might go wrong later on with her uterus. She had none of these things. She was one of these, she's like a goat. She could eat anything, she could do anything and never get ill. She's gonna love that I just called her a goat. But anyway, so an old goat. Anyway, so but the thing of it is that the doctors just took out everything, took out her uterus, took out everything, and then just said, "It happens. You're old." And she's like 60 something. It's like, no, she's not old. She didn't have any pre-existing conditions. Another person was a gentleman in his 50s. He's a jogger. He's slim. He eats really well. 3 weeks again and stroke, two strokes, right? That, oh, it can happen because you're over 50. And so this is what's really interesting. So people in their 90s were dying of COVID,
Hmm.
but then when they had the jab and die of thrombosis of the heart or thrombosis of
Hmm.
the uterus or whatever, it's
Hmm.
it's nothing. It just happens to be their age. It's really, really,
Yeah.
really worrying.
Yeah.
Life hacks. Why work harder when you can work smarter and live better? Life hacks.
All right. So, I mean, yeah, to me, it's really suspicious and it's weird. And it just doesn't seem to be very much critical thinking with some of these doctors. I don't know why they're avoiding this, but what do you see in your side of things when it comes to the medical data?
I see the exact same thing about um, some of it has to do with actually not reporting, not making the association. But I
Mm-hmm.
have a personal quick story on that. Is that my an uncle of mine had gotten a stroke a month after his second Moderna vaccine, and he got that stroke on May the 1st, and we are here at May the 25th now. Um, but he's been in the hospital ever since. And I went to visit him in the rehab. They just moved him to the rehab center, and I visited him 2 days ago on Saturday. He's got two staples in his head,
Mm-hmm.
from the drainage. He's basically learning how to walk and talk again. I've never seen a stroke person up close like that. But the point is that during that whole that whole admission into the hospital, right before his surgery, nobody asked him had he had a vaccine. It never came up. When I talked to my cousin about his dad, and I talked to my aunt about her ex-husband, I'm like, dude, didn't you guys ask? Did the doctor ever ask? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, didn't you ask the doctors? I'm like, why
Right.
didn't the question ever come up?
Mhm.
And they didn't. I mean, they're not me, but so they didn't know to ask.
And
And
the doctors aren't offering. That's the scary part.
yeah,
Yeah.
Doctors are not
yeah,
offering, and they're supposed to they're not supposed to harm people. That's what they take that
yeah,
oath for, and yet that is
yeah,
ignorance, or
yeah.
purposeful ignorance is harmful.
It,
And
it it's
yeah,
purposeful. It is
yeah,
purposeful.
yeah.
Half of our population now is vaxxed.
Mhm,
Has at least one jab if they're not, if they're not
mhm,
fully vaccinated.
mhm.
So that would tell you that any office visit from here forward,
Yeah.
any
Be the
emergency
first
visit from
question.
here forward, that should be the first question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, Eva, what's the situation in the UK? Because I mean, we were talking in a previous episode about medical malpractice being the
Yeah.
third killer, and
Oh
here we
yeah.
are with not being able to visit our relatives back from January when you said these jabs were originally given and they were getting results. We don't even really know how many were being reported because people weren't even able to see family members that had been put into hospital, so who knows what they really died of.
Yeah.
But anyway, what's happening in the UK?
Yeah, so just for some comparison to Albert's numbers, it might be interesting. So again, it's so difficult because as you already said, our systems aren't working very well either. So in
Yeah.
the UK, it's the yellow card, and I think
Yellow
it's
card.
estimated that between 10% is reported.
Mm.
So the yellow card, I just pulled this up today. So as of the 12th of May, but again, we don't know how much of a backlog there is. There were the reports of 1,178 deaths. And we have
1,000.
a huge amount of events. We have 822,000.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, which is massive. I mean, they're not individual reports, so some reports
Mm-hmm.
will have multiple
Mm-hmm.
symptoms, let's call it. And then for the EU, it's really difficult to find the EU one because they've done a consolidated one. It's called I don't even know how to pronounce it, Eudra
You,
Vigilance.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the one I've looked at. Yeah, I've looked at that
I don't
one.
like it. You're probably better at it. But yeah, from the 8th of May, so yeah, they reported just over 10,500 deaths.
Yeah, that's
And
the one I looked at, and they don't allow you to data dump like they do for
no,
our VAERS. So you have to go with what
yeah,
you have to take them at face value and what their
yeah,
little summary tells you, but you can't download the data and analyze it. But
no.
but yeah, I mean, those numbers are scary,
Ah,
even taking them at face value like that.
yeah,
So, but the problem is, guys, is that we have these people that they've got blinkers on, right? Like a horse, and they've got a carrot dangling in front of them. And whatever the carrot tells them is what they go with. And so I am having a lot of arguments, let's face it, because I like to argue with people about, they're like, oh, VARs and yellow card, anybody could put anything. How do you tell people that,
Right.
I've said to them, look, if they look at VAERS, for example, it's a lot of details.
yeah,
You have to have your batch number from your vaccine or your jab or whatever that you have had.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to put in, and it's quite complicated. And therefore, for somebody to be a troll on
Mm-hmm.
VAERS, it just doesn't make a lot of sense,
Mm-hmm.
and not to discredit a heavy menstrual cycle as a side effect, because actually it is a side effect.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's,
Mm-hmm.
what are you telling people to look at so that they can to get out of this dangly carrot that the
Right.
media is giving them?
No, great. Thank you for this opportunity. Is that just to complete my story? Is
Mm-hmm.
on Sunday I video recorded myself submitting an actual VAERS report
Mm-hmm.
on behalf of my uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And and I was fumbling around because I hadn't actually, submitted a report, myself. So I didn't know what I was doing. I was just fumbling around, but I did it, and I videotaped everything, and I was I was saying along the way, reading, every page there's a disclaimer that submitting a false claim is a federal crime, punishable by jail and a big fine, and
Right.
that's boilerplate on the bottom of every page you walk through. And I'm saying, hey, um, for the amount of information that they're asking me as the submitter,
Mm.
they're like, okay, how are you related to the patient, and what's your name, and what's your telephone number, and what's your address. And
Wow.
so I was surprised. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how much information they were going to ask of
Right.
me,
Right.
the submitter who's not the patient. So, and in my video, I'm saying, hey, this is good for the naysayers, the deniers, and the pundits out there, that it's going to be very difficult for a troll to come on here, or
Yeah.
for some
Mm.
international hacker or whoever to come
Mm-hmm.
in here and try to sabotage the system and try to pump a million deaths in here.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they,
Exactly.
and in the fine print of the VAERS system, it says that they allow themselves 4 to 6 weeks before, from receipt of a claim
Mm-hmm.
to publishing it to the public.
Right.
Four to
And
four to 6 weeks. So
mm.
up
So they
to
can edit it, I'm
up
sure,
to
because
4 to 6 weeks. Yeah,
right.
and
So
and
that's
and that
something else
is,
that's happening,
yeah.
right? Because I know, Eva, you were saying
Yes.
that there's now reports coming out, or maybe it was, or Albert, that there's like a new edit system that they're putting in where they can delete what they consider isn't connected, which is insane
Yeah,
as well.
in the fine print itself, is some that a follower of mine sent in the comments. I just give them credit. They'll know who they are. I don't know who they are, but they gave me the fine print, and where it tells me, where they say that they can delete. They can delete claims,
Yeah.
but the premise is for duplicate patients, in case
Mm.
they find, and that's always a problem for medical, for hospitals, providers
Mm.
in
Mm-hmm.
a system, and they're always constantly consolidating a duplicate patient, like the
Right.
patient's in there multiple times and they consolidate the
Mm-hmm.
account.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the premise of them being able to
The premise.
delete,
Right.
either delete a false claim that they consider false,
Mm-hmm.
or like a cleanup,
Mm-hmm.
clean up their database. But at the same time, I say that, hey, why don't you ever clean up the 40 or 50 extra deaths that I find in there? It's the same 40 or 50 extra deaths that are in there that say it in the write-up. Patient passed away, but the little box was not checked to say, oh
Oh.
yeah, he died. He died.
Wow.
And
Wow.
there's an extra 40 or 50 deaths every week of those.
Oh
Well, this is
God.
it. So you were like, with the numbers that you're doing, from what you see as being reported. Let's just clarify that again for our listeners. They're not adding up. So what are your
No.
actual predictions? Like, what do you think? 4,000. What should it actually more than likely be?
Yeah, if they were caught up, and based on, and I do this based on, it's as if, and I could pick the date. It's as if on around January 9th, it's as if they let the adverse effects come in organically, and report to the public organically. And then on January 9th, from that point on the graph, it goes, it
Down.
it goes downwards.
Yeah.
But at the same time, here in the United States, we were ramping up. Vaccines were going exponential. I mean, we're pop-up tents were popping up all over the place,
Right.
and the data shows it. By March 31st, we as a nation had 36 million doses rolled out. So not patients
Yeah.
vaccinated, but just doses.
Mm-hmm.
And 36 million. And today we have like 286 million doses
Wow.
issued out into arms. That's what they say, right? 200.
Mm.
So I'm saying half of our currently published adverse effects were from those 36 million jabs. How So
Not 280,000 million.
yeah,
Exactly.
so so with that, even with that, I took the ratio
Right.
of how many how many adverse effects were generated from that 36 million jabs, and I extrapolated that ratio out to
Hmm.
current, like
Hmm.
to the end of April. How many adverse effects would there be to the end of April? And what I came up with is I came up with over a million and 61,000 adverse effects. But just to put it in context,
Oh,
there should be probably on that ratio about 12,000 deaths and 6,500 permanent disabilities. So that's in
wow.
addition to the 12,000 deaths, 6,500 permanent disabilities, and then of course, all the other event hospitalizations, life
Yeah.
threatening,
And
the
that's the
two.
1% that actually get reported. Back to that again.
Yeah,
That's the basics. Yeah.
from there now, from the 12,000 deaths. Now you can multiply times 100, or now you can multiply times 10.
Yeah.
So I want to make that distinction when they say that what gets reported. Wait a minute, what gets reported to VAERS, or what VAERS reports to the public, because there's 4 to 6 weeks where they get to make the sausage, and I
Hmm.
believe that they're
Hmm.
losing the sausage. There's a lot of sausage that gets lost in there before they
Yeah.
report it out to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
That is insane. And it's so important that you're doing this. And I think people need to realize, just look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Albert is literally doing the work for you. Eva is doing the work for you. We on LifeHakx only use factual information. So, if you think, oh, well, it's the Daily News or it's CNN. No, it's not. It's coming from the CDC government website. It's coming from, actual PubMed posts. It's coming from experts and specialists, because we want you to have the facts so that you can put them together and take off the blinders and see what's going on. I know that people are saying, well, you're talking about, okay, 38 million people, 280 million people. They're all fine and dandy. The issue I have, and we'll come right back to that, is that so many people die every year from car accidents, being hit by a cow, eaten by a shark. Okay, it happens. Death happens. We are all going to die. The problem I have is that the normal average of deaths that occurred last year, which occur every year because people are old, have cancers, etc., are now on the increase. Miscarriages, younger people, mental health issues, etc., because of this experiment. And that's what it is, people. It's an experiment. So with that, we'll be right back. Thanks, guys.
Check it out. Last night a DJ saved my life.